Hey, Randy, we can't hear you.
Can you all hear me now? Can you hear
Yes.
me now? Yay! Thank you to whoever threw that in the chat. I always tell people, if you feel it or hear it or don't hear it or have a question, someone else is thinking the same exact thing that you are. Let me just welcome you one more time now that you can hear my voice. I'm Randi Braun. I'm so excited to spend this time with you on the topic of embracing the back to school mindset, a quick 30-minute express workshop. Good afternoon to our friends on the East Coast. Good morning to our friends on the West Coast. Hi to some of our friends who sometimes join in Europe. And I'd love to hear from you all. I would love to hear where you're joining from today as we jump into our conversation. So I know that I see some names that I recognize. So welcome to the members of our Something Major community who are back. It's so nice to meet you. You are first timers. Just to introduce myself, my name again is Randi Braun. I am the founder of the women's leadership firm Something Major. I'm an executive coach, and I am the author of this book, Something Major, the New Playbook for Women at Work, that thanks to your support came out as a Wall Street Journal bestseller last year. So thank you for all of your support. And I'm really just excited to have this conversation with you all about what it means to embrace the back to school mindset as we make the pivot from the summer to the fall. And as I'm just looking through the chat, I love that we have people from as close to me in Bethesda, I'm in Washington, D.C., to Portland, Oregon, Pennsylvania, Chicago, Northwest DC. I see one of my neighbors on here as well. So thank you for joining us. And, I just want to give you a little bit of backstory about why I wanted to have this conversation. So last year, I was really struggling, like so many of us do, to make the pivot from summer to fall. I don't know about you, but to me, the summer always feels like the time goes by too fast. There's something that's very languid and luxurious about that energy. And then suddenly September comes, and whether you're a parent who has a formal back to school moment or not, something happens after Labor Day, and with pumpkin spice lattes come a lot of stress and pressure and end of year buzz and chaos. And so I felt like something at the end of last summer felt really incongruous to me, which was, why was I spending all this energy building these rituals for my children around back to school, but not kind of putting myself through the back to school mindset? And that's when I missed it. I miss the ritual of buying school supplies. I miss the ritual of the excitement of laying out that outfit or getting your lunchbox, or kind of the smell of a fresh number 2 pencil. Does anybody remember these from when you were in school? I took those out of my daughter's backpack the other day, and I was like, they should make a candle because this is pure relaxation to me. And so last fall, I wrote an article for Forbes called 7 Ways to Embrace the Back to School Mindset. And it ended up being one of the most viewed pieces of content that we put out there last year. And so I said, that's it. Next September, when we all start the fall again, let's just have a Something Major community conversation. And so today, in a world that is full of 5-year plans and huge transformation and all this buzz and chatter about goals, which obviously as a coach I love, I think sometimes we miss the opportunity as high-performing women to have these 5-minute moments where it's what's a quick little hack that I can use to shift my energy? And so today we're going to spend our time doing 2 things in this 30 minutes together. Number 1, I'm going to walk you through some of my ideas, 7 ways that you can bring that back to school mindset to your work, your life, to help make that pivot from summer to fall more intentional, more energized, and hopefully more fulfilling as the seasons change again. And then 2 is I want to hold time at the end for your questions. So as you transition to fall or think about your goals for the end of the year, do you have a question about a goal that you want to tackle, about something about networking, about managing your time? So I love to take your questions, and there is a Q&A box that you can pop in. So with that, as I jump in, I want to hear from you all just really quickly in the chat. What was your favorite lunchbox of all time? As you jump in today, what was your favorite lunchbox of all time? Mine personally was a Lisa Frank lunchbox. My mom is here because she is my total champion and she doesn't miss an event that we do. So Mom, thank you so much for letting me buy the Lisa Frank lunchbox that year. I know you know which one that I'm talking about. So I'm hearing we've got a lot of Barbie lunchboxes classes are back, and I can't wait to hear from the rest of you. So again, I want to just jump right in. We talk about, what are ways that we can embrace the back to school mindset in our work lives as busy professionals. And so the first thing I want to talk about today, tool number one, is think about getting your new schedule. Do you remember what it would be like at the beginning of the year where you would get your class schedule and you would see who your teachers were and you would see period you had your favorite class like art or PE, and what period you maybe had your least favorite subject of the day, and you would really build your schedule and your mood around that.
Can everyone hear me now? Yes? Here we go. Thank you all for your patience and for speaking up. As I always like to say, is it a day that ends in Y if there isn't a tech issue? So keep me posted. If we lose the audio again, we are all at the mercy of those very sneaky Zoom elves. And what I was saying, I'm not sure where I got cut off, but we're going to talk about, 7 things that we do or we used to do when we were going back to school, and think about how to reimagine them in the context of our work lives. So the first was thinking about how we get a new schedule. And as I said before, I'm not sure where you all lost me. It used to be that you would get your schedule and you'd have some excitement about when your most favorite period of the day was, that elective that you loved. And you'd have some kind of emotional preparation about when your least favorite time of the day was. You had structured time, if you remember going to school, to actually eat lunch. And one of the things I see all the time in my coaching work, and even just in my conversations with friends, is that often we let our calendars run us. We don't run our calendars. And so as you think about embracing the back to school mindset this fall, I want to encourage you to take a hard look at your calendar today when we get off the phone, right? Like, do you like the way that it looks? And a few things as you kind of embrace that, get a new schedule mindset, a few things. Number one, what do meetings look like on your calendar? Are there 1 or 2 meetings that you currently have on your calendar that you could either remove, shorten, or change to another day? Number 2, where is your leisure and your self-care time on your calendar? So like when we were in school, we always used to have a lunch break, and we don't have a lunch break anymore. And so I want to understand, how could you look at your calendar and build in not just basic functioning activities, but, also think about times for self-care. Also look at the calendar now as you think about getting your new schedule this fall, and think about what your PTO time looks like. I was just speaking at a conference the other day, and when I shared this statistic, it was like the room could not believe it. But the average number of unused vacation days in America are 700 million. So Americans, on average, we don't use 700 million of our vacation days. And why that matters, because you have goals and dreams and vacations and tasks around the house you just want to even do on a staycation day, is that we forget that vacation time is actually part of our compensation structure. And so I want you to just think really quickly, I'd love to hear from you in the chat. What would it look like now, embracing the back to school mindset tool number 1, for you to get a new schedule? Does it mean being more rigorous about what meetings are on your calendar, or how to rearrange your work time, or maybe put in flex time? 2, is it building in like self-care, functioning, and flourishing breaks of like when I could have lunch? Number 3, is it thinking about today is the day that I'm going to commit to really using my vacation or using my PTO? And remember that that can even happen, chunked. I have certain activities that I like to build into my schedule that happen on a quarterly basis. Stephanie Schwartz, who's in here, who just put her name in the chat and said she's from Northwest DC. One of my things that I schedule as much as my client work is making sure that we have a monthly get together with our friends. So I want to hear from you. What is something that you're going to schedule to your calendar? And Rachel says she's going to add time for learning and professional development. So even if you don't think about it in the chat, put it in the chat. I want to just hear from you. And Stephanie says, yes, I treasure those check-ins with friends. Rachel said she's going to put professional development time in. Mara says that she's going to put in time for daily walks and meditation. Madeline says a solo walk to slow down. I think the solo walk to slow down is one of the most underrated self-care activities we have. So Madeline, I'm a +1 for that, and for everything else everyone else has put in the chat as well. And I love the way that Stephanie is just building on what Madeline said. She said, not only does she take her walks, but she actually schedules them. And I'm going to actually talk about some of that habit stacking in just a few minutes. So, my second tip for embracing the back to school mindset this fall is that you don't skip homeroom. Do you remember? I don't know, and I'd be curious to hear from you. What was the first grade when you went to school that you had homeroom? I had homeroom in sixth grade. I had Miss Scognamillo, and I remember getting homeroom on my schedule, and I didn't even actually like really understand what it was. And I roll in and I'm like, so what is this? This is just like a time to like check in, literally check in, right? Like finish up any homework I had, look at the day ahead. And I'm like, wow, how did I, as an adult, lose homeroom? Right. And so, as you think about embracing the back to school mindset as an adult in your work lives, I want to encourage you to think about, like, what could homeroom look like to you? So, what are some of those rituals that you want to build into the morning to help not just your productivity, but your sanity? And I'll share a few examples of what I like to do in terms of my homeroom. So, there's my what I think of as like my self care homeroom. That's how I get myself oriented, and my work homeroom. That's how I get myself oriented at work. So, number one is I'm a huge believer in habit stacking. And I'd love to just see a plus one from anyone in the chat. Has anyone here ever heard of habit stacking when it comes to designing new routines or new rituals? Okay, so Mara says that she's heard of this. I'm curious some of the others. So I want to tell you like a real story, which was like I literally like could not figure out how I could get into meditation. Like I was meditation curious. I had seen that it was really helpful for my clients, but I just like couldn't build my own habit around it. And it was something that I wanted to last year at this time implement into my homeroom routine, quote unquote. And so the idea of habit stacking comes from James Clear in Atomic Habits. And he says if you want to build a new habit, simply stack the new habit on top of an old one that's really sticky. So my morning habit was step one, I put my kids on the bus. Step two, I would go on a walk. And so what I did was I was building out my own self-care homeroom is I just decided to stack that new habit that I wanted, that meditation that was going to become part of my homeroom, my daily orientation, my check-in, and just do a 5-minute meditation right after my walk. What's really helpful about using this kind of habit stacking is that like one, it takes the planning out of it, right? Because it just becomes automatic. Two, it makes it really easily repeatable. So I want you to just take a minute and think about what is something that you need to build into your homeroom in your self-care routine before you even get to work? Is it the walk? Is it having a better breakfast? Is it 5 minutes to yourself? Is it a workout? Is it a quick chat with a work wife or a friend? So really think about like what's your self-care homeroom before you get back. And think about from a work perspective, what is homeroom going to look like when you get to your desk? So a lot of us, we get to our desk and we jump right into email, right into calls. I really want to encourage you to think about what could developing a homeroom moment look like in your office? And I can tell you, for me at the end of the day is where I start my to-do list for the next day. But one of the things, one of my favorite hacks for building homeroom into my work life is that I start my morning not by looking at a to-do list, but a to-delegate list. So I see my to-do list, I see everything that came in my inbox overnight, and I actually spend the first 20 to 30 minutes of my day making a plan for what all the other members of my team can handle for me. So usually an email goes out, or just answering questions in my inbox to members of my team that are going to allow me to take something off of my plate. So I'm curious, I'd love to hear from you, whether it's a self-care moment or a work moment. What does a homeroom moment look like for you? If you were to embrace the back to school mindset this fall and create a homeroom moment, what is something that you're going to implement into your morning routine? Bonus points if it's something that's 5 minutes or less. It's that 5-minute meditation, it's that extra walk, it's that workout. Would love to hear from you all. And a friendly reminder that we're going to be taking your questions in a few minutes, and I'd be happy to answer them if you put them in the Q&A. All right, Melissa says that she's going to do quick journaling in the morning. I love doing journaling. And one of my things is I get very distracted, Melissa, and I literally will do something where like I'll set a timer on my iPhone and then I'll have to like put it in the other room where I can hear it, but not be tempted to kind of like play around on it. And just make myself write for 5 minutes. And what I find is that like I literally let the alarm go off again and again and again, because once I can get into 3 minutes, I don't stop. So Lisa says she's going to try meditation. Pia says that, she's going to look at her calendar every day and add focus time. My favorite thing, Pia, too, is to build those focus time blocks on in advance. It is always easier to move a schedule block you have in your calendar than find it to begin with. Melanie says she's going to play guitar, delegating ideas. starting with a daily, weekly to-do list. My favorite part about hearing from you all in the chat is that we get this opportunity to like cross-pollinate ideas. And I feel like I always leave really inspired from you all as well. Okay, so tip number 3 that I want to talk to you about today. I want to encourage you to make new friends. Do you remember like the nervous butterflies feelings that you would have when you would go into that first period of homeroom or you'd go into a new class? Maybe you were new in school, or maybe you didn't have that many friends at a certain point in your student career. And there was that idea of like a new school year meant a new opportunity to make new friends. And I think that one of the things that we always forget that we can do is make networking easy and make networking fun. So I want to give you one tip for reaching out and making new network connections, and another tip for kind of cultivating the ones that, it's that person you meant to ask for coffee 6 months ago, or the person you meant to follow up with and now you feel awkward about it for just getting after it. But interestingly, one fact of research from that was published in the Harvard Business Review showed that women are better networkers, but we tend to network less because women are more likely to look at networking as an extracurricular activity than a core competency of our professional role. And so one of the things I want to encourage you, and I talk about it in my book for those of you who have read it, is every single one of us has goals. Those goals should be a contact sport. There is someone in your network today who wants to help you with something you're doing, who has the answer to a question you can't solve, who has question that's going to give you an idea you haven't even thought of. And as you embrace the back to school mindset this fall, I want to encourage you to think about making new friends. So number one, I want to challenge you to leave this webinar today and to think about who is one new person I can reach out to, whether it's someone I want to ask for an introduction to, or just even signing up for a local networking event in your community. It's something we let go of a lot in the summer, and I want to encourage you to bring it back for fall. Then number two, who is somebody today who you're overdue to catch up with or get together with that you want to reach out to? Really embracing that spirit of making new friends and just thinking about one outreach you can send. Maybe for you, it's posting on LinkedIn or being more active on LinkedIn. Maybe it's sending one email this week. Maybe you're someone who wants to commit to sending 3 emails this week. Think about like really bringing some intentionality to your networking, keeping it simple, keeping it fun. So that's my tip number 3, is think about what making new friends looks like at this juncture of your career. Any questions about this? Okay, so moving on to tip 4, and I want to take your questions if you have them, so definitely pop them into the Q&A. If you have any questions for me about like moving to the full mindset, achieving your goals, thinking about networking, thinking about managing your time, I'm here for it. So tip number 4 is I want to encourage you to get a new outfit. So do you remember like back to school shopping when you were a kid, you would like pick out new outfits? In our house, we get everyone new sneakers, new backpacks, even though our kids wear uniforms to school. I don't know about you, but when I look in my closet, I still don't see that many things that excite me. We're in this new era of what people call power casual, where we're less formal than we used to be. And so for a lot of us, we have formal wear or business wear that's sitting in our closet and collecting dust, but we can't exactly like roll into work in our Lululemons. Even though the joy of working for myself is I wear elastic almost all the time. And so I want to encourage you to think about like, what would sprucing up that outfit look like? It's not about spending a fortune, but it's about feeling like, how can you get excited to show up to work again? Whether it is a new accessory or, it's maybe even just purging your closet, or maybe going into your closet and rediscovering a gem. So if you have an item, by the way, that you are obsessed with this fall, I'd love to hear from you in the chat. Any suggestions as we all think about our new outfit? The same goes for stocking up on school supplies. So, obviously right now we're in this really kind of, I think, growing pains of a moment in our culture where it's like we're returning to office, but the rules are in flux. And, some of us have a home office or we never really built a home office. I really want to encourage you, tip number 5, to think about what it could look like to restock on school supplies. So in my office, you can see one thing behind me, which is I got my storyboard of my book framed over the summer. My big summer project to get new school supplies and embrace the back to school mindset this summer was to have all sorts of art reframed on my office. And you can't see, but above me and around me, I have probably about a dozen and a half gallery wall style pictures in here. I lit a candle before we got on here. I bought a few new pens. I bought a few new notebooks. So I want you to think about like, what are some small tweaks you could make to your workspace as you think about stocking up on new school supplies that could offer you a moment of getting to show up to your workspace instead of having to show up to your workspace. and would love to hear from you in the chat. If there's an office supply that you love, or like a candle that really makes you feel happy. And Shannon just asked me, what's the schedule board behind me? Shannon, it's actually not a schedule board, it's my storyboard for when I wrote my book. So all of those stickies align to specific chapters. And that was actually the first draft outline of my book. And a client of mine suggested that I get it framed so that I have it for posterity. And so I did. But I'm also like all about a whiteboard if you need that. So two more suggestions I want to give you, and then I just want to open it up to if there are any questions from you all. So number 6, in terms of embracing the back to school mindset, is thinking about how you embrace a good night's rest. I don't know about you, but during the pandemic, I felt like I lost the ability to get a good night's sleep. Like I was stressed out all the time. I feel like there were no boundaries to the day. I know we've talked about this a lot over the last 3 years, but the thing is that so many of us are still showing up to work absolutely exhausted. And some of you know this story, which is, back in June 2020, I thought I had my exhaustion under control. I was wrong. Like so many high performing women, I was gaslighting myself on how tired I was. And that is when I fell asleep driving my car in broad daylight. I crossed 6 lanes of traffic, including the entrance to a highway on ramp. And I came to a screeching halt in front of a pedestrian about inches before hitting that. I was, as you could imagine, hysterical. I felt ashamed because, for God's sake, I do this for a living. And what I learned that day was that according to Harvard Medical School, even though I was stone cold sober, showing up to work or getting behind the wheel exhausted like that has the same level of cognitive impairment as showing up drunk. And so as you think about embracing the back to school mindset, I want to encourage you just to rethink, like if you're one of those people who has taught yourself that you're just functional on exhaustion, you're not. And if you wouldn't rip 3 tequila shots before getting on an important meeting with a client or a colleague, if you wouldn't do a keg stand before you go to check in with your boss, or submit a document that's important, I encourage you to really check yourself and really embrace that back to school mindset of revisiting what it looks like to get a good night's rest. So that's just like daily, day-to-day hygiene, what it looks like to have screen-free time before bed, or to not check your email until you've, had your homeroom moment of going through your day. And also thinking about, how you use sleep and rest on the weekends and taking your PTO. Because like the truth is we all think that we can muscle through our exhaustion, and our exhaustion and what happened to me that day is a great example. Your health and your exhaustion might be the actually only life or death thing that you do every single day at work if you're not a physician. And so I really encourage you to think about what it looks like to get a good night's rest. And then finally, embracing the back to school mindset tip number 7. I want to encourage you, like, don't forget to pack lunch. And what I mean by that is like, we have like just created an environment where we just work all the time. We work through lunch, we work through every meal, we check our email while we're having our morning coffee. So it's not just about carving out time to have lunch, but when I say don't forget to pack lunch, what I want to say to you is think about small moments to have micro moments of self-care where you give yourself the time to, have that cup of coffee, take that beat in between meetings, actually eat during the day and not make your desk a kind bar graveyard, which is what I feel like mine looks like when my day goes to hell in a handbasket, which happens from time to time. And the research from Harvard Business School shows that just taking these 30 seconds, micro moments of self-care in between calls can have a measurable impact on 1, making you more productive, 2, giving you higher marks from your stakeholders, and 3, giving you a higher sense of self-satisfaction in your role. So I want to take your Q&A now, if we have any, or to get any feedback you have in the chat. And just to recap, those 7 tips for embracing the back to school mindset at work. 1 was get a new schedule. That's take control of your calendar. 2 is don't skip homeroom. Carve out ways to find those, those little rituals at the beginning of your day. Number 3 was make new friends. So think about, goals that you have for your networking. Just 1 email, 1 outreach, 1 coffee, 1 networking event. Tip number 4 was get a new outfit. A lot of us are just feeling blah about physically getting to work, so find ways to have fun with it. Tip number 5 was stock up on your school supplies. So think about how you can make your workspace more inviting, more fun, more luxurious. Tip number 6 was get a good night's rest, thinking school hygiene. And tip number 7 was don't forget to pack lunch. So what I'm going to do right now, we have a few minutes left. I'm going to have Megan on my team pop in all the links for how you can keep in touch with me. If you have questions about this, including the original Forbes article that this quick express workshop was based off of, and I want to invite you to hang out with me again. So you can see in the links Megan just said, I just shared my website. We have so many events that are coming up. There's free events, there's paid events. So if you're going to be in DC, we have our Something Major Power Lunch that we're going to be opening registration for on October 27th. We just announced that we're going to have a retreat in Montauk, New York, May 9th and 10th if you're interested. And then make sure that you stay tuned for lots more free events just like this one. You can also keep in touch with me on social media. I just threw my LinkedIn handle there. So what you can do there is, I love to hear from you. I see some women who joined today who have never been to a Something Major event, but we've exchanged some correspondence on LinkedIn. I want to hear from you. I want to connect with you. I want to follow your work. And please feel free to follow mine for lots of quick tips that you can use as a woman at work to thrive both in your career and thrive in the process outside of work. So I'm going to give a last call for any Q&A. I don't see any. I loved the things that we had in the chat. Love to hear from you. What's one thing that you're taking away from today? What is one thing that you are taking away from today in the chat? And I just want to remind you that my door is open. I want to hear how these things are going. I want to follow and support your work back. I want to hear a question that you maybe didn't feel comfortable, sharing in front of everyone in the chat. And I want to just thank you again for being here. I know that Melanie's leaving, with her new outfit. Patricia's leaving with habit stacking. Rachel's going to leave take a hard look at her calendar. So until next time, my friends, I am Randi Braun. I am the CEO of Something Major. I'm an executive coach. I'm the author of this book, Something Major, the new playbook for women at work. You can learn more about it by clicking the link above. And I really look forward to just hearing how it goes for you as you embrace the back to school mindset. It is about so much more than pumpkin spice lattes and just white knuckling through the end of the year. So with that, as we all take control of our calendars, I'm going to give you a minute to the bottom of the hour to take that first micro moment of self-care before you jump onto your 12:30 or 11:30 or whatever time zone you're in. And thanks again for your time, everyone. Take care and happy fall.